This meeting is being recorded.
Right. I'm here with Thomas Randall today. He moved to Japan more than a decade ago. He's an expert on Japanese football. He had a very enlightening thread on Japanese football on LinkedIn, and I shared with some of people here, and really opened a lot of eyes. So thank you for joining us on Injury Time, Thomas. It's a pleasure to have you. A bit about your journey, please.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure. It's a real honor to be able to talk on this podcast about my expertise in Japanese football. So maybe a little bit about myself. I came here to Japan in 2007. I'd already been coaching I'm from the UK originally. I'm from not far from Manchester, so in the north of England. And as a youngster, I played a lot of football. I aspired to be a professional player. I didn't quite make it, but as we were training at the youth stage, so under 18s, under 16s, 17s, 18s, our team kind of put on a course that all players had to take a coaching course, and that's how I got into football coaching originally. On that, I went and coached in America, on the West Coast, in California, Oregon, and Washington for a while. And then I ended up here in Japan. And I started my own academy here. It took a little bit of while. It took me a while to learn the language. That's one of the keys in Japan. There's not a lot of English speakers. But once I got the language down, and I'd had a few different experiences. I worked for UNESCO actually here in Japan. So that really opened my eyes up to like business. I did a lot of networking, and then I was able to start my own academy in 2010, just after the South Africa 2010 World Cup.
And as somebody who's obviously dabbled in Japanese youth soccer, what is it that keeps the nation producing so many great players? Because we saw in Qatar that they had a very tough group. They were probably not expected. I mean, two world champions, right? And they got out of the group, right? And suddenly people are saying that it may not take till 2094. It may not take 100 years for them to achieve what they want to do. It might come much earlier. So just tell us, just give some insights into why they produce so many good players.
Yeah, I think Japan has done a good job of building from the bottom up, from grassroots up to start with, but also understanding that you have to have a system of top down too. So they're doing both. So in my opinion, the World Cup result was not a fluke, but at the same time, it wasn't. They didn't play amazing football. They have amazing players, but they understand that this is the way they have to play. But also, they've got quite a good structure in place from grassroots upwards. But also, this time at the World Cup, they had a good structure in place from the top down too. So even from Moriyasu, the head coach, he had a plan going into the World Cup, and he stuck to the plan. But because they've got such a good grassroots system here, they were able to see out that plan because they've got the players to be able to do it. So if they adapted that plan to play in a different way, they have a different set of players because they've got such a good structure and a good base from grassroots up. So I think if you think about it in both ways, it isn't just grassroots, which has achieved this result in the World Cup, and it isn't just the top level. It's all the things in between. So it's kind of a showcase of how I can say we here in Japan have improved so much. And as personally as the experiences I've had over here, when I first came here, there was a lot of things which kind of shocked me and I didn't think were maybe right for kids football. But as I've been here, the systems, I understand the systems which they have in place here. And because I've been able to understand them a lot more, I've been able to integrate those into my own academy and place my academy in Japan in the systems which are in place, but also have a little bit of a European flair about it too. I think the key in a lot of ways is not just to be too structured. I think allow each team to have their own kind of individuality, but within a nice, flexible structure. So if I can go into detail about the structure, if that's okay, then maybe it's a good opportunity for people in India to learn about how Japan structures its youth football. So what you do is, I'll start from the bottom. So you have even from kindergarten ages. So here in India, it's similar to the American system, where up until the age of 6, you're in kindergarten. And you, in a lot of kindergartens, I'd say maybe 50% of the kindergartens over here have an affiliation with a soccer school. The soccer school might come onto site during the morning. My academy does too. Yesterday I was at a kindergarten and with some of my staff, and we were putting on a soccer school for little, really small kids, just really basic stuff, but really enjoyable. So up until 6 years old, it's a really enjoyable phase. There's no seriousness about it. It's just like an introduction to football, and hopefully they get kicking the ball around, doing other sports, and really starting to understand that football's quite a thing they want to continue with. So it's like a window to open window to football at kindergarten age. And as you go on to the next stage, which would be the junior stage, which is pretty much elementary school, from first grade, 7-year-old, up to 12-year-old. That's called the junior stage, which is the largest stage, 6 years. And my academy has 6 teams in that stage, which runs from under 7s right up to under 12s. And sometimes it's probably the most difficult stage, also the most rewarding stage, because especially at under 7s, 8s, and 9s, you can see the players improving in front of your eyes in half a day. So the structure in place there is at under 7s and under 8s, and up until halfway through under 9s, you play small-sided games, 5-a-side, 6-a-side, mainly. And when you start getting into under 9s, they'll do about half and half. They still play small-sided games, but also start playing 8-a-side games on a half-a-size pitch. So you don't play on a full adult-size pitch. They're half-size pitches with smaller goals, and the lines are all everything's. If I go into specifics, it's 50 meters by 68 meters. So that's generally half-a-size pitch, and all of the grounds have small-size goals in Japan too. So that really helps. So you're not having a goalkeeper playing in huge goals, or you're not having to just kick the ball right to the other end of the pitch just to get to the other end of the pitch. Everything's smaller, so it's a lot easier for the players to adapt to the environment. And as you get on to under 10s to under 12s, you're still in the junior stage. That's when it becomes a little bit more serious. So you learn the basics at under 7s, 8s, and 9s. And at under 10s, 11s, and 12s, that's when official tournaments start. You've got the All Japan tournament for under 12s, which is a huge. Every team in Japan takes part from the qualification stages. And up until under 12s, it's really, really well structured. And then generally what happens is at under 12s, either the clubs will have the next stage, the junior youth stage teams, or you expect your players to then go on to a different team. So we actually let those players go. You have to, if you don't have a junior youth team. So when you get into the junior youth phase, that's when you start under 11-a-sides at under 13s. So under 13s, 14s, and 15s, it's 11-a-side. And it's a similar structure. The under 13s, it's a new start under 11-a-side. So it isn't taken as seriously. It's like a building phase. Then when you get to under 14s, under 15s, again, it starts to be taken a lot more seriously. And that's when you get your big official tournaments. And finally, the next stage is the youth stage, which is high school, under 16s, 17s, and 18s. And again, generally under 16s, it's kind of starting again, building up to be able to compete in the big tournaments at under 17s and under 18s. One unique part of the youth stage is in Japan, high school soccer, high school football is huge. A handful of club teams under 18s, 16, 17s, 18s. And that's mainly due to the fact that high school football, high school soccer over here is huge. The high school soccer All Japan tournament, the final is played at the Olympic Stadium in Tokyo every year in the winter, freezing cold, and it's full, 100,000 people there. You can't get a ticket because it's huge. So that's kind of a breakdown of the structure in place from kindergarten right up to high school. And within that structure, the players are expected, the development of each player is kind of developed up to a certain point to the end of each stage, and then reassessed, and then you move on to the next stage. So I hope that was clear. It's kind of a unique structure, which even it took me a little while for me to understand it, but after a few years here, I understand it now, and my academy fits into that structure quite well. So that was quite long. I hope I didn't talk too much, but
no, I love the introduction to Japanese football because in Indian football, our biggest problem is that we really don't have a structure until the age of 12, and that's a big miss for us because I mean, as somebody who's a licensed coach himself, I can tell you that most of our foundational work between 4 and 10 is missing. So yeah, and that's a big problem because you have kids who are coming in at 12 and don't know the basics, right? And so I've seen shows like Awashi teaching the basics to kids through a cartoon format, or now you have Blue Lock, right? And so these are fantastic addendums to the whole football education system. So I mean, it's just so beautiful to see all of this come together, right, in a way that it really benefits kids, you know. So
yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's one thing I noticed compared to, say, Europe or America is kids over here can also be inspired by like kind of manga and anime and different things away from, like in, say, for example, in England, where our kids are inspired by the Premier League, Match of the Day, Sky Sports, and the analysis, whereas kids over here are inspired by different things. And I always wonder if each country can kind of hook on to what inspires the kids. Like, say, for example, in India, it might not be manga and anime, but it might be something else, you know, to really hook their kids in to not just play, but really immerse themselves into football and love it, like from within your blood. You know, the best players love it, love every training session, every time they kick the ball, every time they watch something or see something or learn something. So I think that's a big opportunity for India to understand what inspires the younger kids.
No, for sure. And we definitely need to find out what makes our kids tick, right? Because from personal experience, kids at 6, 7, 8, 9, they just want to play, right? They just want to get onto a pitch. They don't want the parent from the sideline screaming too many instructions. They don't want the coach teaching them too many. They just love the pitch and they love the ball, and that's it, right? And you have to make sure you facilitate that love by doing whatever it takes. I'm really surprised that you have 8-a-side games at such a young age, but again, like I said, Japanese youth football continues surprising us in ways we have no idea.
How about in India? Are there 8-a-side matches? Are there small side matches and tournaments?
So we just started the baby leagues in 2016, right? And till the under 12s, we maximum go up to, let's say, 6-a-side matches, right, in the baby leagues. But the baby leagues are a recent phenomenon. We're still seeing players start football only at 10, 11. But like you said, they might be very good athletes at that point, or they might be into multi-sports. Someone might be into badminton and athletics and then switch over to football. So we're seeing, what do you say? We're seeing some sort of youth structure come into place. Yesterday, the federation just announced Operation Blue Cubs, which is essentially they're trying to reach out to as many kids as possible. But it's very difficult without a structure, because like you said, you have an all Japan under 12 tournament, and that's something aspirational. That's something that people want to play for, right? Can we create an aspirational property like that? So that's a question. But sorry, my question, yeah, my question to you would be, is that and you said you've been sports as well as, other than football also. How does Japan, and you're an expert in sporting business also, how does Japan really sustain this kind of expenditure on grass? Because this kind of structure requires a lot of capital to sustain, is my understanding, right? How does Japanese football and in general Japanese sport sustain this kind of capital?
Well, in Japan, for a long time, it's expected for parents to pay for extra activities. So, like in Japan, it's got a culture of cram school. Like extra study after school, and a lot of my players at my academy, they'd also do cram school. They do soccer. They might do swimming. They might do like even Japanese calligraphy and things. And each of those activities, the parents are just expected to pay, and the parents are willing to pay as long as it's good, as long as it's at a good level. There are volunteer clubs too. So within the structure I just explained before, especially at junior stage, you'll have volunteer clubs, which are called in Japanese, they're called sports shonen-dan, which is kind of like a community team, but you still have to pay for like subscriptions and like kind of tournament fees and things like that, and also registration fees. But when you play for a club team or an academy, like my academy, you're expected to pay a monthly fee as well, and that's kind of expected. And when you move on to the junior youth age, if you're playing for a higher end elite team, you're expected to pay. If you play for your school team, or generally it's a school team or a club team, the school teams are generally like kind of similar to the community teams, not as high level, so it's somewhere to play. So Japan has always had that culture of, the parents are willing to pay, but as it's structured, also the Japanese Football Association, they register every kid. So from the age of under 10s upwards, so 10-year-old, every player is registered. It isn't a huge fee. It might be 1,000 yen, 1,000 yen a year, which is about $10 a year. But if you've got every player from the age of under 10s all the way up to adulthood registered at 1,000 yen a year, 1,000 yen would be $10, about $10 US dollars. So that kind of bankrolls the structure from the base down. You've got a membership. It's a small fee, but if everybody's paying it and everybody is willing to pay for it, then it automatically builds a nice foundation. Then on top of that, you have fees for tournaments. Obviously, you'll have fees for referee courses and coaching courses and goalkeeper coaching courses and extra things. So those all put money back into the Japan Football Association. And then obviously on top of that, every big tournament has a big sponsor. So the All Japan tournament at under 12 is sponsored by McDonald's. That's the main sponsor, which is huge, even at that age. And we play in different tournaments. There's all types of different companies which sponsor big companies, huge Japanese companies. They see the merits of sponsoring junior football, because it feels like they are also a part of the development of Japan. So that's pretty much the structure in place, and that's how it also is kind of like paid for on a general level. But like I said, parents are generally willing to pay for good services over here. So it might cost a little bit more, but it's worth doing. Also, just quickly to add, like in Japan, the time spent playing sports is a lot longer than European countries and American countries, any other place I've been to. So, for example, on a weekend, let's say, for example, last weekend, my academy, we hosted our own tournament. Our players arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning and they left at 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. And then the day after, we played in a league match, which is an official Japanese Football Association league match. And we arrived at the ground at 8:30 in the morning and we left at 3:30. So it's expected that you play at the grounds and you're at the grounds and you're playing. You're not just playing matches all day, but between matches, you're doing extra training, you're playing with your friends, you're doing skills, like kind of ball skills, a lot of different training. But you're expected, a lot of the time, you're expected to be there for most of the day. Whereas in Europe and different countries, you go to the pitches, you turn up at the ground, you play one match, and you warm up, you play one match, and you go home. Whereas here, it's a completely different, it's like, I don't know, the best way to explain it is it's all or nothing. If you play soccer, it's all in. And I think that's one thing which India could maybe learn from is, like I explained before, from a grassroots level, Japan was a long way behind 20, 30 years ago. But one of the reasons why they've caught up is because they've invested time into it, not just money. They've invested a lot of time into developing a lot of good players over here too.
It seems to me like Japanese companies and firms and especially just the ecosystem sees a lot of social rate of return, right? Social return on investment, and that's something missing in the Indian ecosystem because companies in general don't see the merit in having a healthy population in sport in general, right? It's we have a law called the CSR law, the Corporate Social Responsibility Law, where every company that makes profit above a certain margin is supposed to invest a certain percentage, but investment in sport is still far behind than what it should, right?
Really?
For example, if you look at football, for example, right? You can't possibly sustain it with the budget that India currently has. It has 1.4 billion people. You can't tap into 1% of that population if you don't get corporate support. So that's a big miss that we have, and it's very interesting, refreshing to hear that companies there are very open about supporting. Just to give you a indication of where we are, and for us, even Japanese, you said the school teams may not be as good. Even your LinkedIn post, you said school teams may not be as good as TJ Youth, but one of our best setups, the Reliance Foundation Youth Championships, they went and they played at the Sanix International Cup that was held in Japan recently, and they were, I mean, it was a humbling experience for them, right? 3-0, 4-0, 11-0. So yeah.
Can I just stop you there though? From my own experience, this is maybe a good indication for where India is at the moment. When I was younger, I played in an international tournament in England, and we had teams from Brazil, Mexico, America, Ireland, and Japan. And it was the same situation for the Japanese players. They came, everything was perfect. The kits, the balls, the bags, everything Japanese, like very Japanese. It was a rich country at the time, still is now. And we were all like in awe of them. Every team, like, they stood out. So all of the players were like, wow, look at the Japanese team. But when they played, they got beat 10-0, 11-0, 15-0. They were a long way behind. This was when I was 14, so 24 years ago, 25 years ago. And look at the progression they've made in this short time. I can be confident in sending my academy, which is not a huge academy, just outside of Tokyo. We're not anywhere near the top of the Japanese structure, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to develop players. But I'd be confident in taking my academy to England to play in an international tournament, and we could compete. So even in that small period of time, the progression has been huge, and I believe that any country can see the development and see the progression which Japan has, just with the right structure, with the right investment, but also definitely with the right plan. If you have the right plan, then the investment will start to come. If it's the investment from one company and they benefit from being part of the success of Indian soccer, then more companies will see that as a great example and want to get on board too.
Success is a great driver, no, for sure. Yeah, it is. It is. And India, the country, is super success hungry, because at Tokyo, we won one gold medal at Tokyo 2021, right? We won one gold medal, and that's independent India's only second individual gold medal. We have 8 in hockey, in field hockey, but individually it was India's first ever athletics medal, and it was coming after I think after 100 years India won an athletics medal. It was gold in the javelin throw. So it was a huge moment back here home, right? Because India won the gold medal and stuff. Indian sport a lot of potential, but like I said, it needs to really buckle down like Japanese football did 20-30 years ago, and really destroy what currently exists in order to build something anew, right? And I understand that. Just tell me something, for an academy like yours, what's your incentive for I understand the training compensation might be something that's global right now, so it might be something that's there for you guys as well. But apart from that, and apart from the social rate of return, like we said, the social return on investment, what other incentive do you really have? And I'm talking about purely a monetary sense. Is that a big investment for you guys to do something, and other setups like you to really develop players?
I think it's like anywhere else in the world. If you have a plan, if you work hard and realize the potential in certain areas, then the monetary rewards will come with a good plan. And I think what Japan has also, one part of the structure which is beneficial to, like, say, companies like mine who are sports clubs and mainly soccer, but sports clubs, is that the structure isn't too rigid. It's quite flexible. So the leagues are not every week, and the tournaments are not every week. So that gives each individual club the chance to maybe host your own tournament and put on your own events. So whereas if you compare that to, say, Europe or different countries where the league matches are week in, week out for a full season, and then you have your off season, then you're back into it. Whereas here, there's no off season. That's one thing to kind of highlight. There's no off season at all, which can be I don't know, like a drawback for like maybe the older players at high school and the junior youth stage, because they need an off season to let injuries heal and things like that. But at the junior ages, under 12s, kids are kids. They will play even if you say you have an off season, they will still, if they love football, they will go out and play. But my point is that because you play all year round and there isn't a rigid schedule in place, then clubs can do extra things. So it's not just you don't just get your monetary rewards through monthly fees and sponsors. You can do more things on top, especially events. Events is a huge part of my company. If we weren't able to put on our own tournaments, which we want to expand on too, then it would be a lot more difficult to sustain the company. So I think that's a chance for India to not be too rigid with the structures, have a nice flexible structure in place, and say, right, we we're going to develop our players within this structure, but the clubs, but the actual leagues and the tournaments are not, they don't overawe the whole season, if you know what I mean.
All right. We're almost at the end of our 40-minute. We'll try to extend this conversation on another call, but just quickly before we jump onto another call, for India, right? And this is for your reference. We have a huge off season. Our senior players play a maximum of 20-25 games per season. That's it. And it used to be,
Really?
yeah, it used to be even lesser. It used to be a case where we had a 3-month season and we had like 9 months off for the senior players, right? Yeah. India recently hosted the Under-17 Women's World Cup, and this is after hosting the Under-17 Men's World Cup in 2017. So we held both versions, both gender, right? And I spoke to people from the US, Brazil, whoever we were drawn against in the group. Our kids, when they played in the Under-17 World Cup, had a exposure of 2,500 minutes by the age of 17, whereas people from the US, Brazil had 20,000 minutes under their belt, and that's a big problem that we have. That's a big.
And that is where you have to invest time. It's not just money. You have to be able to make the players, the parents, the clubs understand that you have to invest time. People are the most important things in development. You know, you can have all the infrastructure and equipment and all the night. Like I said about the Japanese team who came to England, they had everything perfect, but they weren't investing the time at that point. Now they're investing time, and that I think is the number one part of the Japanese success story so far.
Let's just quickly jump on to the other call before this one ends. I've sent you